Hello, this is Diarmuid O'Flynn from the Ballyhay Says No campaign group, and I'm going to try to explain the deal done by Michael Noonan last February when he transposed the contentious promissory notes to sovereign bonds. By January of this year, most people were beginning to grasp how the promissory notes worked. It began in 2010, the then Fianna Green coalition government issuing notes covering massive central bank funding of Anglo-Irish Bank to the tune of €25.3 billion and Irish Nationwide Building Society to the tune of €5.3 billion. Both of those banks were already insolvent, well known to be insolvent, yet that money was drawn down from the EU's Emergency Liquidity Assistance Fund with the full knowledge and approval of the ECB. Reluctant approval, but approval nevertheless. Liquidity is the key word. Those banks didn't have a liquidity problem, they were insolvent and should have been allowed fail. Instead, the banks were kept on life support as all their bonds were paid off, and that bill then being transferred to the Irish people. Legal protection doesn't exist for people apparently. In return for the €30.06 billion thus pumped into those banks, a schedule was drawn up whereby the Irish Central Bank, over time, would remove that same total from the Exchequer. This schedule involved the destruction of €3.06 billion every March 31st between 2011 and 2023, and that annual figure then reducing until such time as all the notes plus interest, which we were paying largely to ourselves, had been paid. As the reality of this absurdity dawned on people, there was outrage, and rightly so. A broken economy, borrowing €3.1 billion every year to pay a debt from which we had never benefited, and those billions then destroyed. What sense did that make to anyone? I mean, this was surely from the Lol and Hardy School of Economics. Pressure mounted on the government to simply tear up the remaining €25 billion promissory notes and face down the Troika, the ECB in particular. But this government didn't have the stomach for that particular fight. Instead, they came up with a new arrangement, all on their own, a deal which transforms very debatable debt, totally illegal, Finance Minister Michael Noonan admitted on national radio, into sovereign bonds. Here's what happens now. Before the end of 2014, our National Treasury Management Agency will issue a bond for €500 million. Now that's only €500 million, but it's a lot of money. Before the end of 2015, another €500 million bond will be issued, then another, and then the increments increasing until in 2032, when the last bond is issued, we will have €25 billion bonds in total. But what happens to the €500 million that's taken in before the end of 2014? What happens to the billions taken in before 2032? Exactly the same thing as happened to the €3.06 billion promissory note every March. It is destroyed by the central bank, every last cent. And that's what you're not being told. And meanwhile, on all those borrowed billions, we're paying interest, increasing annually till it totals approximately €47 billion. But even that's not the end of it, not by a long shot, because eventually those well-fattened chickens come home to roost. And from 2038, having collected their interest, the bondholders come a-calling. They want their original money back, the money we had destroyed, and now we have a new schedule, a repayment schedule. €2 billion in 2038, €2 billion again a few years later, until in 2053, when we pay €5 billion, the last of that €25 billion in bonds is paid off. Just pause for a second and take all that in. To cover private bank debt, we as a sovereign people are issuing bonds for €25 billion, which we then destroy. We pay interest on those bonds for decades, nearly €47 billion in total, and it could be a lot more. And then we repay that €25 billion in full. Does that strike you as a good deal? Not I. Intergenerational national debt is normal, but there's nothing normal about this. Normally a nation borrows for the benefit of its people, but not a single cent of that €25 billion will go towards our broken health system, towards easing the pain of the vulnerable, towards lifting the burden on Middle Ireland. Not a single screw, in a single door, in a single classroom, in a single school. Not an inch of road network constructed. The original promissory notes were for the exclusive benefit of banks, bankers and high financiers, and we know what those guys are like now. The sovereign bonds that now replaced them are exactly the same. It was immediately claimed that the New Deal meant a saving of €20 billion. Lies, spin. Across a range of top economists, Seamus Coffey, Konstantin Gurdjieff, Brian Lucey, Colin McCarthy, Carol Whelan, those savings are estimated at between €3.5 billion to €6.5 billion. But only if the ECB doesn't look for an acceleration of the programme, which it might, and also subject to several other fair weather conditions. One question we have though: how do you affect savings in paying a debt you never owed? My apologies for the quality of this video, for its very amateur composition. We who are trying to get this message out don't have an army of PR people. We haven't been trained by Terry Prone or Bill O'Herlihy or Car Communications. We don't have any highly paid advisors. We have Windows Live Movie Maker, and we have the truth, the unvarnished truth. The spin from the government and its cheerleader spinmeisters is this: look, we know the debt is being passed down to our kids and grandkids, but sure, that's normal. Aren't we making things easier on ourselves for a few years and maybe saving a few billion? What they're diverting you from, but what we want you to know is this: with the promissory notes, we were borrowing to burn. With these sovereign bonds, we are still borrowing to burn. Exactly the same amount, assuming a debt for our kids and grandkids that was never ours and was certainly never theirs. Choose who to believe. Choose what you do next. Ballyhay says no. Charleville says no. A growing number of towns and villages around the country have joined us in the Ireland Says No campaign. There is still time for you to join us, but that time is running out. Those bonds are scheduled to begin issuing before the end of 2014. No matter what, that must not happen. Thank you.